All right, so today we are going to start Unit 2, and Unit 2 is all about computer coding. So by the time we finish this unit, which believe it or not won't be until right around Christmas break, that's how long this unit is. By the time we reach Christmas break, you all will have created your own video game. Kind of cool. Okay, so first thing I want to make sure that you do is if you have not watched this video, make sure you watch the video. The link is in Schoology for you to watch. So make sure you watch this video first before you do the notes. Okay, so everyone should have the lesson one packet. So this unit you'll notice is a little different. Instead of getting a full unit packet, you're going to get a lesson packet. So every time we start a new lesson, you will get a new packet. Okay, some days we will do one lesson and completely finish it. Other lessons will take multiple days for us to finish. It really just depends on the content. Okay, so today we're going to do lesson one. And we have some definitions here. So our first definition is the coordinate plane, and that is a grid made up of the x-axis and y-axis. Okay, you guys should all be used to what the coordinate plane is. That's just your basically a sheet of graph paper that has an x-axis and a y-axis. Now our x-axis is the horizontal number line. Okay, and then remember your x-axis is the one that goes side to side. While our y-axis is the vertical number line, that's the one that goes up and down. Okay, so we have our x-axis and our y-axis. The second thing here is a coordinate, and a coordinate describes a specific location. Whoops. On the coordinate plane. Okay, so for example, we have the point like 3, 7. So it's always in the form x comma y. Okay. Now our definition of a midpoint, that is the middle of 2 points. Okay. So if I want to find the midpoint, what we do is we take the average of the x values, excuse me, and the average of the y values. So if I find average, that just means I add up all the quantities and divide by the number of quantities that we have. So here, if I'm finding the midpoint between the points 0, 100 and 60, 30, I'm going to find the average of the x values. So I have 0 plus 60 divided by 2. That's going to give me 60 divided by 2, which is 30. And then I'm going to find the average of the y values. So 100 plus 300 divided by 2 equals 400 divided by 2, which is 200. So my midpoint, capital M, would be the point, whoops, 30, comma, 200. Okay, so if I want to find the midpoint between these next 2 points, I'm going to take the average of the x's, so 150 plus 300 divided by 2, and that equals 450 divided by 2, which equals a decimal. No, it doesn't, Miss Joseph. We're going crazy today. 450 divided by 2 is 225. Okay, so my next one, 25 plus 175 divided by 2 equals 200 divided by 2, which gives me 100. So my midpoint, capital M, is equal to 225, comma 100. Okay, so you just find the average of the x values and the average of the y values. And then our last definition here is the origin, and the origin is where the x and y axes intersect. Okay, and the point at the origin is always 0, 0. Okay, so make sure you have all of these definitions written down and the examples before moving on to the next page. Okay, so what we're going to do is look at a sample video game, and then we're going to figure out how this video game works. Okay, so if we open up NinjaCat here, if I run NinjaCat, oh, okay. We'll use the arrow keys to move and jump on the dog. So I use the up arrow to jump on the dog, and the sideways arrows to move back and forth. And then I collect the rubies. But I don't want to run into the dog. If I run into the dog, the game's over. Okay? So if we go back to our notes, these were our characters in the video game. So we have NinjaCat. We have the dog. And we have the ruby. So these were the 3 players in the game, essentially, or 3 components of the game. The NinjaCat was the one that I moved. So this would be called the player. Okay, that's the one that we can control. Okay. Then the dog, that's what we call the danger. And then the ruby was the target. Okay, so there's 3 components here. We have the player, the danger, and the target. So the player is the character that we control. Where the danger is the character the player is trying to avoid. Okay, and then our target is the item the player wants to collect. Okay, so the point of the game was for NinjaCat to collect the rubies and avoid the dogs. Okay, because anytime I hit the dog or the dog hit me, I lost a life. So NinjaCat wanted to collect the rubies but avoid the dogs. Okay, so here we have a table which we're going to reverse engineer the NinjaCat game to see how it works. So number 1 says fill out the first column with a complete list of things in the game. So let's think of all the things that were in the game. We had NinjaCat, we had the dog, we had the ruby. Then what else did we have that was moving? We had the clouds. Then there was that background image. And the last thing was the score. Okay. Number 2, fill out the second column with what's changing about the objects as you play the game. So NinjaCat, what do I change about NinjaCat? its position. Same thing about the dog. The dog was changing its position. It was getting closer to me. The ruby was also changing the position. It wasn't in a fixed spot the whole time. It was changing its position. Same thing with the clouds. Okay? But that background image, the red scene, didn't change anything. It stayed the same. Right? Okay? And then our score changed the value. It went up every time I got a ruby. So more specifically, my Ninja Cat. When I moved Ninja Cat, we noticed that I could jump up and it would come down, or I can move side to side. So I was changing its X and Y coordinate. Now, since we didn't have any control over anything else, the dog and the ruby and the clouds, those were just moving side to side, right? They were coming closer. So the only thing they were changing was the X value of those two things. And then the background and the score have nothing to do with this. So when we're looking at this, it's all about changing the coordinate of Ninja Cat on the screen. Okay? So make sure you have all of that written down. So here we have a grid. And we want to think I'm always talking X, Y points when we have a grid. So number 1 says, what happens to the cat's coordinate when he moves to the right? So if I were to move the cat to the right here, its X value would increase and the Y would stay the same. Right? So the same kind of thing would happen if I moved to the left, except instead of the X increasing, it would decrease. It would be getting smaller. But the Y would still stay the same. Okay, so what about if it moves up or down? The X is going to stay the same, and our Y value will change. So if I'm moving up, the Y will increase. And then if I'm moving down, the X stays the same, but the Y is going to decrease. Okay, so we're thinking about changing the positions of the cat. So here we have just this basic screenshot of the game. And what we're going to do is answer some questions based off the game as if I were to put it on a grid. So number 1, it says the coordinates for the bottom left corner. So looking at this grid, it tells us that is 0, 0. The coordinates for the bottom right corner, we look at our point, is 640, 0. The coordinates for the top left corner, so top left, 0, 480. Coordinates for the top right corner, 640, 480. All right. Now our second set of 4 here, these are asking for the midpoint. So remember we said the midpoint is just the average of the x's and then the average of the y's. So if we're looking at the left screen, the left-hand side of the screen, I want to find the midpoint between our 0, 480 and our 0, 0. So we're going to do 0 plus 0 divided by 2, comma, 0 plus 480 divided by 2. So if we think about this, 0 plus 0 is 0, and 0 divided by anything is still 0. So its x value is 0 here. My y value is 480 divided by 2, which half of 480 would be 240. Okay, so we're saying my midpoint of the side here about there would be 0, 240. Right? So the midpoint of the right-hand side of the screen, we would be doing 640 plus 640 divided by 2, comma, 0 plus 480 divided by 2. So 640 plus 640 divided by 2 would give me 640. And then we already know 480 divided by 2, and that's 240. So my coordinate on the right-hand side at the midpoint would be 640, 240. My midpoint of the top side of the screen, so we have 0 plus 640 divided by 2, comma, 480 plus 480 divided by 2. So my answer for this, half of 640 is 320. And then half of 480 plus 480 divided by 2 gives me 480. So the top of the screen is 320, comma, 480. Okay, and then our last one, midpoint of the bottom, we have 0 plus 640 divided by 2, comma, 0 plus 0 divided by 2. So half of 640 is 320, and then half of 0 is 0. So we have 320, comma, 0. Okay. Then our last section here says the coordinates for the player, which is a ninja cat, the danger, which is a dog, and the target, which is a ruby, are approximately. So if we look, I know ninja cat, if I look here, ninja cat's about halfway between the 0 and the 320. So half of 320, this would be 160. And then it's not quite halfway, right? It's head. So however you interpret this. So we could say that this was 120. Maybe this is like 100. So we'll say our ninja cat is 160, comma, 100. All right, then we look at the dog. Right here's about halfway, so that would be 480. So the dog is in line with the ninja cat, but, so we're saying between 320 and 480, but closer to 480 than 320. So let's say 460, comma, 100. And then our target, or our ruby, a little bit past 480. And then see how far across we are. Just under 240. So maybe we call this 500 to 20. Okay, these are just approximate. You can have totally different answers here, but it's just getting you to eyeball what the coordinate would be. Okay, so let's see. The next thing here is for you, just right now, I want you to brainstorm what you want your video game to be. So you're going to create a background or think about what your background would be, who you want the player to be, so who you have control over. what you want the target to be, so what they're trying to catch or collect, and then your danger, what you're trying to avoid. Okay, so are you a penguin who wants to catch the fish but avoid the iceberg? And then maybe your background is the ocean. Okay, I just want you to brainstorm, come up with some ideas, and then you guys are also going to do lesson 1 homework tonight. Okay, so that is in Schoology. Make sure you have everything written down. If you want to play the video game, that link is included in Schoology for you as well. Okay, so I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and let me know if you have any questions.